Hello Sagittarius and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of June 2022. So this reading will be for Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. And by all means, if you know your Sun, Moon, and Rising sign and they are different from each other, feel free to check out any and all of the readings that apply, as each one may resonate for you differently. And as always, do keep in mind these readings are general in nature as they're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals. So not every message that comes through will resonate for you specifically. So that's why I recommend you take anything and everything that does resonate, however that makes sense for your specific situation or whatever that is connected to or evokes in you. Keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and you can simply leave the rest. Also, don't mind my janky nail polish. It's wearing off and I'm just trying to get all of these videos finished. So normally I would fix it, but I said, fuck it. We'll do it. We'll do it live. So yeah, Sagittarius, I hope you're doing well. I hope May was good to you. I'm super excited to get into some cards for June and to see what kind of energy you might be connecting with. Also, I can't believe it's already June, so that's insane. It means I've already been reading cards for you guys for 6 months, so it's already been half a year, which is wild to think about. So whether it's your first time here or whether you're returning, thank you for sharing this time and space with me. I really appreciate it. It's something that I really enjoy being able to do for you guys, and I'm looking forward to continuing to post readings as the months progress. But yeah, so I've got your oracle cards here. We'll pull you some tarot and so on. And as usual, I will begin the reading by sharing with you the channeled messages and just general impressions that I got of your energy, which I sat down to connect with before pulling any cards. And yeah, hopefully we can connect you with some empowering information and messages that will have you feeling prepared to make the very most of the month ahead. And also, full disclosure, I'm not sure how much the microphone picks up, but I'm like right at the back corner of my house and my neighbors are having a pool installed. So there's like a lot of construction workers, some like yelling and banging. So if you hear like some chaos in the background, that's why. Okay, so Sagittarius, I am going to get into just kind of like the general vibe and impression and the things that were coming to mind and that I was noticing as I was beginning to connect with your energy and prepare for your reading. And it's really interesting because it was kind of like a frazzled energy, like frazzled, feeling out of sorts, maybe like a little bit unfocused or disorganized. And the sense that I got was like feeling rushed. So it's almost like that sense of like a little bit of chaos, not remembering things, dropping things, being clumsy, like that kind of chaotic energy was stemming from a sense of being rushed or feeling rushed. And I didn't necessarily get the sense that like you're necessarily putting pressure on yourself to rush, but perhaps there are external circumstances, either individuals or expectations that make you feel as though you can't take your time, or that have you in a position where you're consistently rushing and feeling really frazzled. So it's like it could be a combination too. It could be like an expectation that you put on yourself, and it could also be like believing that you need to rush because other people are waiting on you. And I just kind of got the sense that like even just this concept of needing to go quickly or needing to be super organized and on top of things might actually be stressing you out to the point where it's making even like the simple things more difficult. Because the vibe that I got is like, you know, when you're late or you're like on the verge of being late and you're kind of running around your house like a chicken with its head cut off, like trying to do all sorts of last minute things. And because you're running around and you're trying to get out quickly and you're trying to get everything done, you end up really clumsy. So it's like you'll drop stuff or you'll forget stuff, or it's like, you know, like your shirt will get like caught on the door or something, like just that stupid stuff that never happens. Like that's the vibe that I'm getting. So I don't know if that's something you're currently up against, or maybe that might be a theme for you, but it's just being aware that like you might need to kind of just give yourself the opportunity to slow down a bit. And the thing that came to mind is like giving yourself a timeout, right? Like putting yourself in timeout if you're a little too stressed or a little too frazzled, because just taking a moment to kind of like ground yourself and disconnect from that energy might help you kind of like regain that composure and do whatever needs to be done with it without rushing and struggling more than necessary, I guess. And also you might need to stand up to individuals who are making you feel rushed or putting pressure on you. Any situation where you feel as though like you're not able to take your time. And of course, it's not always within our control, but in the situations where it is, I would say like maybe advocate for yourself. And the other thing that really what kept coming to mind was the sense of being like compromised. And I didn't necessarily feel like you are compromised, but it's a sense of feeling compromised. So it might be mentally, emotionally, it could be physically, it could be all on all levels, to be honest with you. But yeah, so there's a sense of feeling compromised. Like, I don't want to say incapable, but maybe not being able to do what you used to, or not being able to do it in the way that you are accustomed to doing it. Maybe like feeling a little bit vulnerable because things are different and perhaps you're not coping as well as you are expected to. Like, so it's kind of like a sense that like feeling compromised and feeling like you're not doing a good enough job, or like you've got struggles or issues that you feel like you shouldn't have. And feeling like it's not okay to be in that position. Like it's not okay to be vulnerable. It's not okay to struggle. It's not okay to maybe need some more help. So it's kind of like feeling as though you're compromised and having to pretend as though you're not. And so that could also like go hand in hand with, you know, just putting pressure on yourself, or maybe preemptively putting pressure on yourself because you feel like other people are putting pressure on you, or other people won't be able to support you. So I don't know if that makes sense for you, but I would just keep that in mind, that might be something that comes up more this month. It might be something to work through. Because also like one thing that I noticed in preparing for your reading, like with the cards and like crystals and everything, it's like I just kept dropping everything. And every time I dropped something, I became more like frustrated with myself. Like, can't you do anything right? Like, and normally I don't have that problem. So, but it was kind of like the whole vibe. So I don't know, that might be something you're contending with. And the other thing that came to mind was to keep an eye on your blood sugar, on your nutrition, the things you're eating, like when you're eating throughout the day, especially if you find that like your energy levels are really dipping, or you're really struggling on that level. It might be something that you can kind of help yourself out with nutrition wise. So if you're prone to like the sugar crash or caffeine crash, or you know, maybe you're not eating when you wake up in the morning and you're going like half the day without food, that could be causing your blood sugar to like drop off and causing your energy levels to drop off as well. And also like anything like sugary that might like spike your blood sugar and then cause you to crash. So perhaps like finding foods that are like low on the glycemic index, like complex carbohydrates that will give you sustained energy and that will like satiate you for a while to help you kind of like maintain a consistent energy level. It might be something like if you're struggling with it, it might be at least worth a shot. So we'll get into your channeled messages. And interestingly enough, like most of the messages that came through for you guys this month were like almost just single words, right? And so I kind of feel like it leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So I'd be really interested to see like how they apply to you. But the first one that came through was waterfalls. And so it's like the idea of like, so immediately I got the vision of like hikes, like going on a hike in a forest to a waterfall, or visiting a waterfall, or like fast moving water. So I got the sense of like, you know, just getting out of the house, relaxing, taking some deep breaths, connecting with nature, and also just like the therapeutic benefits of being around falling water or fast moving water. So it can be like calming for the senses, of course, to be surrounded by it. But I think like scientifically they've proven that like something to do with the negative ions is I don't know, regenerative for us, or extra relaxing. Like it has some kind of beneficial effect on us. So if you feel so inclined, a visit to a waterfall or a river, or like some kind of fast moving water, any kind of like water therapy might be helpful for you. Yeah, I'm not sure. The next thing that came through was indulgence. And the sense that I got is it's like making sure that you take time, like especially if you've got a lot on your plate and there isn't like a whole lot of time to enjoy or to take care of yourself, or if you approach self-care as an indulgence that perhaps is not something that you have time for or should be prioritized, it's like you deserve, right? Even, on the average day to day, you deserve to like indulge yourself a little bit. And obviously you don't want to be creating more trouble for yourself by avoiding a long list of things that you inevitably need to do, but it's about recognizing that it's important to have those little indulgences, those little moments for yourself, those things that help you feel like replenished and regenerated. And so it's like the thing that came to me is it's like making room for it each day, incorporating that into your daily routine. And it's like establish like what are your top 5 indulgences, or top 10, like what are the top 10 things that you really, really enjoy, that make a difference for you, that kind of bring you into the moment, bring you into your body, bring you a sense of like satisfaction or peace. And I'm not talking about like looking outside of yourself for happiness or looking for something else to kind of like satiate you, but it's something that kind of helps you connect to yourself on a deeper level, kind of like brings you that peace and helps you to get more into your body and more into the moment, almost like meditatively, right? So it could be like enjoying a coffee in the sunshine, or going for a walk, or reading a good book. So I think like maybe making a list of the things that are the most beneficial to you, even like prioritizing like which one has the biggest impact, and then having that list available somewhere where you can see it, and remembering to like incorporate at least one of those things into your day. And perhaps by looking at it and being aware of what those things are, if you have limited time, it makes it easier for you to just say, I'm going to go do this for myself. Like, because it can be hard, right? We get busy, and it's like even just something like sitting out in the sunshine for 10 minutes, like 10 minutes out of your day is not a huge deal. But if you're really busy, you don't necessarily think about doing that, right? So yeah, leave room for it, and bring your awareness so that you've got kind of like an arsenal that you can pull from if and when you have the time, or you're willing to create that time for yourself. The next message that came through was Enigma. And so it's kind of like there might be someone or something that's particularly mysterious, that you can't necessarily get a read on, or like a full level of understanding. It could also be something like a person or a place or a thing that like you're trying to figure it out, and you're trying to connect with it, and then just when you think you've kind of got an idea of how it works or who this person is, like something unexpected comes up and it kind of changes everything. So it's kind of this idea that whatever it is that you're trying to understand or nail down is not quite clear, right? It's still kind of mysterious, or it's shifting in ways that prevent you from feeling confident about your ability to understand it. So whatever that is for you, if that resonates, it might just be something that you need to work through, like maybe why you're trying to understand it so deeply. Is that effort serving you? Are you better just to kind of meet whatever that is where it is as it comes, and just experience it instead of trying to understand it, that kind of thing. So it might be something to keep in mind. The next message that came through was don't forget your spirit. And so it could be like, oh, okay, like don't forget your spirit, like your enthusiasm and passion and all that kind of stuff, right? Which is important. But the way that it kind of felt to me was like, don't forget like your soul, don't forget your feelings, don't forget your intuition, don't forget your spiritual side. So it's like, especially if you're somebody who has a tendency to be really kind of fixated on and present in like the 3D, like physical world. So like focused on the chores that you have to do, or on work, or on your finances, or your family, or, anything like outside of yourself. If you have a tendency to get really kind of involved in and distracted by those things, to the point that you don't necessarily acknowledge your thoughts or your feelings, you don't acknowledge the spiritual side of yourself, your need for rest, maybe some kind of spiritual practice or meditative practice. So it's kind of like we are spiritual beings in a physical environment, right? And so it's like, although there inevitably are going to be demands and ways that we have to show up constantly in the material world, we also have to take care of ourselves like on that spiritual and energetic level. And what works for each and every one of us will look different. So it's like whatever makes sense to you, whatever kind of care you need, whatever's going to help you. And that could kind of be related to your indulgence, like something that feels good to you. So it's like, don't forget about you. And it's not just you physically, like your physical needs and your health and diet and all that kind of stuff. But like also your emotional and spiritual needs as well, particularly if you're somebody who connects with spirituality or like meditation, breath work, anything that can be kind of like therapeutic in that way. The next thing that came through was insensitive, like an insensitive person. And I didn't get the sense that, because initially it was like insensitive asshole, and I was like, oh, that's a little harsh. But the feeling that I got is it's like it might be easy to label somebody who's insensitive as an asshole, even if it's not in like a malicious way and you're not looking at them as like a malicious person. It's just like, yeah, you're an asshole sometimes, right? It's like, oh, I love you, but you can be an asshole. So there might be somebody or multiple people that you deal with that kind of leave you with that impression. You may love them, you may respect them, maybe you don't, but you might have a connection with them, and it's like you can see the beneficial qualities in them, but it's kind of like sometimes it's difficult to get past their insensitivity or the way that they behave or the things that they say that are insensitive, because I get this sense that it's like there's somebody around you who's insensitive and they may say or do insensitive things. And yeah, like I said, it may not be malicious. They may just be used to getting away with it. They may not be self-aware enough to know how their actions impact other people. It could be any number of things, but I kind of get the sense that you're almost doing more work to try and be around this person and to deal with their remarks and to forgive them. And it's kind of like they may not be aware of what they're doing and how insensitive it is and how it impacts you, but you end up having to take on a lot of extra responsibility, like emotionally or, whatever, to process and work through it, to work through your feelings about it, perhaps to have conversations with other people, and to figure out like either how to forgive them or how to kind of work through your trigger. So yeah, it might just be a sense of like, perhaps there's somebody either that is super insensitive that's creating a lot of problems for you that you need to try and distance yourself from, or try to find a way to disconnect from the types of things that they say, knowing that they have a tendency to say things that can be unhelpful. Or it could be like needing to have just a straight up conversation and say like, listen, you say a lot of these types of things and it really impacts me. I don't have the energy to deal with the repercussions of the things that you say. So like, it's kind of like it's up to both sides, right? So it's like you shouldn't just have to be the one shouldering all of this insensitive stuff. Like that other person deserves to know how they're impacting, and they deserve to hold a certain amount of responsibility for trying to be aware, and maybe even just putting a filter on, or maybe just finding a more kind and respectful way to either express their opinion or to raise a concern, or just, whatever the case may be. But it's like you might need to advocate for yourself in that sense, because it's like, yeah, I get the sense that it's like it causes more problems for you than for this person. And so if you're not going to raise any kind of concern with them, it's easy for them to just continue doing what they're doing, and there's no incentive for them to like stop, right? And then finally, the last message that came through for you was it's okay. And it's kind of the sense of like when you tell people it's okay, but it isn't. So it can be from like a place of people pleasing, like we don't want people to feel as though we're upset. We don't want people to exert effort or, fuss over us. So it could be that. It could be also like an unwillingness or a fear of accepting help or support or energy and time from other people, or feeling a need to kind of gloss over your emotions, your experiences, because you don't feel as though you deserve to take up that space, or whatever the case may be. So I would just say, like, if you have a tendency to say it's okay when it's not, maybe just start to become aware of the situations that you feel inclined to say it's okay, and make sure that before you say it, you're going through, or even after you say, make sure you're checking in with yourself. And when you say it's okay, but ask yourself, is it really, right? Is it really okay? Or am I uncomfortable saying that it's not? Or I don't want to make somebody else uncomfortable by saying that it's not. And really just kind of taking some time to connect with yourself and what's going on with you. Yeah, because it's like ultimately, if something's not okay and you're saying it is, there's a certain level of avoidance there. And that's not going to serve you in the long run. Yeah. Okay, so we'll get to your oracle cards. Your first card this month is Unbound, and it says releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives. So I like that. And your second card is Lost Lands, soul memories and gifts. You've done this before. And so after I channeled your messages and these two oracle cards came out, I was actually really excited to see these for you, because it's all about like the evolution of your soul, the evolution of you as a person, and not just in terms of like the very obvious practical ways that you change and you grow throughout your life, but it's also in more like subtle and intuitive ways, and kind of being able to connect with and trust your inner guidance, and that kind of that wisdom that is innately a part of you, I guess. So when it comes to releasing soul patterns, contracts, and past lives, this is about recognizing like anything that's old and kind of tired that isn't serving you any longer. And this would be this is like uniquely related to you and your experience of this life. So it could be specific patterns of behavior. It could be specific beliefs about yourself, about relationships, money, the world. It could be a certain version of yourself or sense of identity that you've kind of, you've had the experiences that you're meant to have. Life is showing you that you've changed and you've shifted, and you're needing to step into a new version of yourself. And it's recognizing like where you were, where you are now in this transitional space, and being willing to give yourself permission to release that previous version of yourself, or those previous patterns or contracts, things that you were bound to, in order to either open up the opportunity to connect with something new, to connect with that kind of next step, whatever's going to help take you to that next level, or perhaps to fully embrace the new role that you are kind of presented with, or you're already kind of stepping into. So this can be about major shifts, like major life changes, milestones, and like events, right? So it can be like, like for example, the way that we have to change when it's like we've moved out of our parents' house and we're like, taking care of ourselves for the first time. So it's like those parts of you that were accustomed to living at home and having parents look after you and take care of you, and, a certain lack of responsibility, right? And then stepping into your role as a more independent adult, where you have to start learning to do those things for yourself. It's like you have to be able to let go of that identity of being dependent on parents or having that kind of safety net, so that you can fully step into your power and feel confident enough to start learning your own way through life and embracing the new responsibilities, rather than resisting the fact that you don't have somebody there taking care of things for you, right? So it's like in every major shift in life, it could be like from being single to being in a relationship, or from like dating to like getting engaged, or like dating and then like moving in together. So it's kind of like all of these times where something has changed and it requires you to change. So in the process of the lead up and the actual change, whatever has caused it's like you have grown and changed. You've experienced certain things that you kind of have to move on from, right? You can't hold on to them. You can't take them with you because they won't serve you. They'll just cause you to stagnate. And then it's kind of like there are new things that are expected of you, new patterns, new behaviors, new lessons to learn, new experiences to have. And it's like you kind of have to release yourself of the old and allow yourself to embrace moving in a new direction in order to welcome in those new lessons. So this is all about like, what are you holding on to that's from the past, right? So it's like either it's related to a previous lesson that you've already learned, and perhaps you haven't finished like fully integrating what you've learned because you're still holding on to the version of yourself that you were when you had that experience. So I know I'm speaking really obscurely, but it's only because this is such a highly personal thing that it can really apply to anything. Any major shift. This can even be like a relationship, right? Maybe you have had like a long-term relationship and you've been through a lot and you've grown and you've experienced all this stuff. And maybe now the perspective that you have on yourself and on the relationship is that it's no longer the right fit, right? And the longer that you acknowledge that you feel that way, but you don't do anything about it, you're kind of stagnating in that energy, and the relationship that you're in doesn't have the potential to grow because you've already kind of learned that lesson, and you're also holding on to it beyond its kind of expiration date. And then you're also preventing yourself and that other person from opening up to the new opportunities and people and life lessons that are essentially going to take each of you to that next level of growth and development, right? So the other thing is, whatever it is that needs to end, whatever it is that's old or it's related to the past, or a past version of yourself that no longer is serving you, it's important to recognize that we can change, right? We can change, and we can change our minds, and that sometimes the things that we wanted, we get to a point where they're no longer serving us. We don't want them anymore. Or maybe the things that used to work don't work anymore. And the most important part of being able to release yourself, to be unbound from those things that are kind of holding you back or weighing you down to a past version of you, is to really come to terms and accept, that at one point they did serve a purpose. At one point they did have value. You learned something, and it's easier to release something when you can honor it, right? So it kind of makes me think of like Marie Kondo. If you're familiar with her, it's like going through and seeing like, does the item spark joy? And if yes, you keep it. And then if not, then it's like you thank it and you let it go, right? So it's kind of like, take the Marie Kondo approach to like your life, your thoughts, your perceptions, your beliefs, your habits, your friendships, your relationships, job, career, whatever it is, right? And kind of like check in with yourself. And when you find those things that it's like, I've outgrown this, or like, this is just old stuff, and it's like, I'm beyond this, I want more, or this isn't serving me, this isn't healthy, or it's not, there's no place for this moving forward because I have to focus on something else, then it's taking your time to acknowledge that it was an important part of your life. And at one point, maybe it did serve you. Maybe you didn't feel as though it served you and it caused you a problem, but you learned something valuable from it and you're able to change for the better, right? So it's like taking that time to acknowledge the role that it played and the value that it had, and giving yourself permission to like kind of thank it for what it's done for you, and to recognize that it's okay to just release it, right? So it's like there is some kind of like almost like emotional, energetic housekeeping that needs to be done as we're kind of transitioning from the old to the new. And the thing is, sometimes we can be transitioning to the new and we're still bound to a lot of things from our past, or like past concepts or versions of ourselves, and old stories that we tell ourselves that are related to something that just isn't relevant anymore. So it's like, this is a good time to take a look at any patterns, relationships, anything that's like not serving you that you've outgrown. Especially it could also be like related to trauma, right? So there's a lot of stuff I've read about like children who grow up with caregivers or parents who are not emotionally aware, Often they're like reactive, and so children are not taught to be emotionally aware by their parents or caregivers. And so these children learn to basically kind of like walk on eggshells and like not have emotions, not express emotion, not cause problems because it's not safe for them to experience emotions, because their caregivers can't handle it. So it's like if you have parents that are like, yo, no, you can't be emotional, and they get upset by your emotions, their inability to regulate their emotions made it an unsafe environment for you to learn how to do that for yourself. And it's recognizing that sometimes we don't speak up for ourselves. Sometimes we don't express our opinions or our feelings. Sometimes we bottle things up, or we try to take care of other people's needs before our own. And that's kind of like a survival instinct that we learned in childhood so that our parents wouldn't reject us and that we would be cared for, right? So it's recognizing that there can be old patterns and like soul contracts like that are related to past trauma. So something that we had to do to protect ourselves or to stay alive or to make something more manageable, and perhaps we've grown beyond that, or we're not in that environment anymore, and we have to stop that. It's actually holding us back instead of protecting us, right? So at that point in time, it might not have been healthy, but it helped us and it served a purpose. And now as adults, it's hindering us, right? So it's like coming to that kind of full circle realization will empower you to let go of anything that's lingering and holding you back. And then, sorry, my smartwatch is vibrating because I'm getting a phone call. Just threw me off a little bit. And so, yeah, so it's about being willing to kind of like free yourself from that. And also, I'll grab the guidebook because I believe there's some kind of activation that might be helpful for you. So we can do that now if you want. So it basically says to hold the card on your heart. So you can just look at it and say, I release all old soul stories, vows, contracts, and patterns that are no longer aligned with who I came here to be in the present time. I carry the lessons, growth, and gifts, but I no longer choose to live the same story. May I be unbound, unbound, forever unbound. So yeah, it's kind of just permission to let go. And then with Lost Lands, this I really, really love for you, because it's kind of like this card is all about acknowledging the things that you've outgrown and that are not serving you or that are holding you back from kind of evolving into that next best version of yourself or embracing your current life lessons and experiences. And this is all about like also trusting yourself, trusting your inner wisdom, trusting that you perhaps have more wisdom and knowledge and experience in given areas than you know, or that you can quantify, or what's the word that I'm looking for? Like that can be validated, right? So for example, it could be, I'm trying to think of like an example that would be more applicable to a broad group of people. But yeah, I guess any kind of inclination, right? So it's like perhaps you're into art, like painting or something like that. And maybe you never learned how to paint. You've never taken a course or whatever, but it just comes naturally to you. It's something that you enjoy. This is like sometimes we judge and limit ourselves based on our level of experience, because we do live in a society that basically says like it values research and practice and education and certification. It's like there's a lot of stuff that's like, you know, it's like you have to be qualified to do something or to be good at it. And, you know, that's very much a symptom of our current culture, because it used to be like you could just do things and learn in the process, or you could like apprentice or something. So, you know, this is basically saying like whether you can quantify your level of experience. So for example, you can be like, oh, well, you know, I'll just speak in terms of parenting because I'm a parent now. So whether it's like, oh, you know, I've never been a parent before. This is my first child. I've never taken care of a baby. I've never raised a child. I never watched somebody raise a child. I don't know how to do it, right? So it's like you might take a look at your life history and say like, I'm not qualified. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, kind of throw your hands up or doubt yourself. But it's acknowledging that it's like you have a whole lot of wisdom that isn't connected to just this life and this experience, right? And so it's like if you tap into your soul, if you're aware of your intuition and those intuitive nudges that you get, you have a lot more than you think. You've got a lot more skill, you've got a lot more ability, you've got a lot more knowledge, but it's really difficult to hear that wisdom, to connect with those intuitive nudges when you're in a place of fear and doubt and self-judgment because you think you can't, right? So it's kind of like, and also, so this is connected to, like, you've done this before, right? This is connected to like past lives and the idea that like, whether you believe in reincarnation or the fact that like energy is never, lost, it's just transformed. So it's kind of like if there's a finite amount of energy in the universe, then inevitably the energy that powers each and every one of our souls and physical bodies will be transformed into another like form of energy or expression of that energy. And sometimes we can be connected to past versions of ourselves or versions of that energy, past lives, however you want to, whatever your belief system is. It's basically just saying that like you have connection to almost like ancient knowledge and wisdom, right? Like you can connect with, so the idea is like you've done this in lifetimes past, right? So it's like whether you can quantify being qualified at whatever it is that you're doing. And this would be something in particular that you're struggling with, something that seems out of grasp, something that you have doubts about your ability to be successful at. So whatever that is for you, if that makes sense, it's acknowledging that those are just thoughts and personal judgments because you're taking a look at what you're trying to do and you're taking a look at the experiences that you've had in this lifetime and you're feeling inadequate. And it's basically saying like you've got so much more available to you, so much more wisdom and knowledge available to you, and you can't get caught up in the red tape of trying to quantify how you could possibly know that or if and how you could be qualified to do it, because it's like you've kind of got lifetimes of wisdom and lifetimes of practice at this particular thing. And as long as you can kind of start to quiet your mind in this rational need to kind of find evidence to prove yourself worthy, then your mind will quiet to the point where you're more able to come into alignment with that inner wisdom. It can be that like a little voice of wisdom that speaks to us and it says like, well, this doesn't feel right. Or it's like, well, what about that? Right? And so it's like trusting your instincts and trusting that whether you can understand it logically or not, whether you have empirical value and experiences to support it, that, you're working with a lot more than you think. So don't underestimate yourself. And it might just be even like out of curiosity, give yourself the opportunity to pay attention to, what is your first instinct, right? What comes naturally to you, instead of looking to someone or something else to answer a question. It's like if someone were to ask you that question, what would your first instinct be? And like not overthinking or overanalyzing it, not allowing self-doubt to creep in, but just allowing yourself to kind of see where your process naturally takes you, right? And that might be a way to empower yourself to realize that it's like, it's like instinct, right? So so much we learned from our external environment, but some of it's also kind of like naturally there, it's programmed in us, right? And it's like if you look at animals and the instincts that they have in terms of like raising their young or hunting or like when to migrate, right? Like nobody sat them down with a textbook and said like, scientifically, this is when you should do it and why, right? It's just kind of programmed in them. And we have that same kind of programming. It's just a lot of times we're not aware of it and we can't connect with it because we're too busy trying to understand things with the logical mind. So this is really wonderful. It's really empowering for you. It's like, it's time for you to embrace your natural ability to navigate your life and to navigate whatever challenges you're currently up against. Especially when it comes to something that you feel like it's a main struggle or it's like your main point of focus or something that you're really trying to achieve. And I think there might also be Yeah, so it's like connecting with divine guidance. And I think there might also be an activation with this card as well. So you can do it if you feel so inclined. So look at the card and say, I unlock any forgotten wisdom and soul gifts from lifetimes past. Yeah, so it's allowing yourself to connect with any wisdom, insight, inclination, skills that are connected to kind of like past lives, this inner wisdom that you're not necessarily aware of, and to give that room to be expressed in your life. Okay. So we will get your tarot cards. There's been a lot of stuff just with these oracle cards, so I'm going to try not to go too overboard on your tarot. So your first card for this month, oh my gosh, is the Page of Cups. I don't know why I said 5. Okay, I just dropped 2 cards, so I'm going to just put those back in the deck and continue shuffling because I'm not convinced those were meant to come out for you. Okay. All right, your second card is the 3 of Swords. Oh, one flipped over. Your third card is the 10 of Wands. This is really funny too because before I even really started connecting with your energy, when I was just cleansing the deck, the 10 of Wands came out, or I looked at it and I felt like it was probably going to come out for your reading. And then the final card for this month is the Devil. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Ace of Swords. And I'm just going to get your clarifiers right away. And we'll give you a read of these. Okay, so we've got the 2 of Wands, clarifying the Page of Cups. Sorry, I don't know. On my screen, it looks a little bit washed out. I'm not sure if you can see it, but... Okay, let's clarify. Oops. The 3 of Swords as I drop half the cards. Okay, I'm going to clarify 3 of Swords. Oh, see, it's on the same trend, of course, as the 3 of Swords. Okay, and we'll clarify the 10 of Wands. That's why I love using a different deck to clarify, because there's the opportunity for cards to be repeated. And like when the card is repeated between the 2 decks, it's like a major highlight. Okay, so Ace of Cups clarifies the 10 of Wands. And then finally, we're going to clarify the Devil. Okay, Devil is clarified by 6 of Wands. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the 8 of Cups. All right, let me just spread these out a little bit. Okay, so at the bottom of the deck, we've got the Ace of Swords and the 8 of Cups. So that gives me the impression that this could have to do with like emotional alchemy, healing, realizing the emotional, or it could be like emotional experiences from your past that impacted you emotionally, or your connection to love and, happiness and joy. So it could have to do with previous experiences, either healing that or figuring out like a need to move away from certain patterns, certain beliefs. Because it's kind of like the things that, it goes very much hand in hand with this Unbound, because it's like the things that maybe once were fulfilling or once did work, or you once thought like were keeping you safe and protected and happy and connected to love. It's realizing that you're at a point where those things are no longer serving you. They're no longer helpful. And it's like needing to kind of leave them in the past, right? So it's like all of these cups are broken. There's no opportunity for them to hold the love and joy and abundance and connection that you are looking for. And your only opportunity is to really just kind of accept that, they're broken, there's no going back, and you have to just continue along your path in search of that cup of happiness. And so that can go hand in hand with a new perspective, right? So it's like perhaps you've had a new perspective on your emotions, your emotional awareness, your intuition and your subconscious, how you've been impacted by previous emotional experiences, maybe the ways that you've been preventing yourself from moving on, from experiencing and processing and releasing emotions and emotional experiences. And it's like, so this very much feels like having an idea, like having a new perspective on what has happened to you, how you've processed things in the past, and working to get to a point where you're willing to leave that behind you, and move forward into something new, right? Or have a new perspective. And so that is coming up as like the underlying energy that's kind of informing the progression for this month. And with that in mind, I really like that you've got the Page of Cups coming up first, because the Page of Cups is it's a very youthful and kind of new approach to emotions, like emotions, emotional awareness, connection, love, joy, and fulfillment. And the thing that I really love about this is it's like if you are coming from a place of recognizing like the past, experiences, losses, hurts, past way of doing things are no longer serves you, you can't stay there. And so you have to kind of process any emotions that are related to those things that need to be left behind and just free yourself to move in a more aligned direction. The Page of Cups is like on this journey of discovery. So it's like starting off on that journey to connecting with more love, more joy, more happiness, figuring out what that means to you, how that is going to be expressed, right? And the page is at the beginning of this journey, and it's like there's so much opportunity available, and now is really the time for you to kind of dream big when it comes to what your life can be, what your life can feel like, what you can experience in love, relationships, self-love, connection to yourself, your ability to acknowledge and express your emotions, to be guided by your intuition. And so it's like this, it's kind of like a dare to dream card, right? So you can be grounded and present in your physical reality and still responsible and taking care of things, but also connecting to kind of like a higher power, a source of inspiration, connecting to your dreams. So it's like, this is very much like, what do you dream about, right? What does a dream life look like to you? The limitations that you feel like you're under right now, what are the ways that you daydream about like overcoming them? What does your dream life look like when you get lost in like flights of fantasy? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Where are you? What are you experiencing? And it's saying like, although it might not seem realistic to you, there's inspiration to be found there. And that inspiration is what helps you kind of like connect to what is most important in your heart, right? Because it's like you can see it's coming from his heart and it's inspiring his daydreams. And this is the When Pigs Can Fly. So it's like if you don't put any limitations on yourself, what would you want to experience? And when that's centered from like a heartfelt place and something that's important to you and meaningful to you, sometimes it's just acknowledging that something is possible that allows us to kind of connect with that feeling. So it's like, what would achieving that dream or living that dream life cause you to feel? Because they say like, we don't chase things, we chase feelings. The only reason why we ever want anything or to accomplish anything is because we're chasing the feeling that that's going to give us. And because it's feelings and not things, we can kind of hack that. And this is part of manifestation and the law of attraction. It's like we can kind of hack that by daydreaming and envisioning that life, envisioning experiencing those things and achieving those goals, and allowing ourselves through that daydreaming to connect with that feeling that we're looking for, to start embracing it, to start embodying it now, and to allow that to influence us right now, because you don't need to wait until you've got that thing to feel that way. But when you start to feel that way, that informs your behavior, and it makes you more likely to take steps in that direction and to align with things that are going to support that end goal, that vision. So it's like recognizing the power of your dreams and that you have a choice, right? Like you have a choice to, stay where you are or stay in a comfort zone, perhaps stay in the past, in old modes of being, in old feelings and experiences. It can be like old soul patterns or, patterns of behavior that kind of kept you feeling safe. But that means that you're preventing yourself from stepping out into new energy and potentially creating something new for yourself that's going to be more aligned to who you are. So it's like, this is the power is all yours. And what better way to follow up leaving something behind, closing doors on past things that are keeping you tied to something heavy, and then really fully embracing all of the opportunity that's available to you and the fact that you have the power to make decisions that are aligned with whatever it is that you are hoping to experience, right? And so it's like, this is a card of hope. And like, it's the same. This is the same energy, right? Being unbound. And so that's the energy that you're being encouraged to come into the month with. It's just this daydreamy energy and this idea that it's kind of like the world is your oyster, right? Because you can stay in your comfort zone and experience life as you know it, but that means that nothing's going to change, right? That means the things that you're struggling with, you'll continue to struggle with. The things that you've outgrown, that you're tired of, will only become more tiring and constrictive, right? But it can be scary to kind of step into the unknown and do things in a way that feels more right to you. But it's trusting that you're supported and trusting that you have the strength to like kind of keep yourself in check, and that there's a reason that you feel drawn to it. There's a reason that you're dreaming of it. And when you're guided by love, it's like you kind of can't go wrong, right? When you're following your heart, because whatever that is unique to you, and it'll look different for each and every person. But it's kind of like, how exciting would it be to just open the door and take a step in a direction that feels more like you, right? And that has the potential to take you somewhere more fulfilling and emotionally connected and, it's more self-aware, more intuitive as well. And like, more connected to joy. And so your challenge this month is coming up as the Three of Swords doubled. So the Three of Swords is the card of, it's like pretty intense heartbreak and suffering. It can be loss, pain, betrayal. It can be, in our external environment and relationships, but it can also be within ourselves. The ways that we self-sabotage, the awful things that we say or think or believe about ourselves, the way that we act that kind of, like I said, self-sabotages, but like, we might want to fulfill our dreams, but we might have so much pain inside of us that's unresolved, that's informing our thoughts and our perceptions and beliefs about ourselves, that we're inherently blocking ourselves from making empowered moves toward our dreams and toward emotional fulfillment, right? Because it's like we're not acknowledging where we're hurt. So it's the most important thing is to acknowledge where you're hurt, to acknowledge, where you are suffering, to acknowledge the things that you think about yourself that are not helpful, that are not empowering, the things that you've been taught to believe that are not helpful or empowering, or keep you in a place of suffering or where you feel stuck and helpless, right? And so it's very much like how those kinds of emotional and difficult experiences shape our beliefs, and the way that we kind of take action. And it kind of like ties us up, right? So it's like your energy might be bound in some kind of pain or loss or trauma. And at your core, you're still bound to it, right? So it could just be a lot of healing, like a lot of healing that needs to be done, or healing that maybe you've been aware of and you've been doing that you're trying to kind of like fully integrate and anchor in. And maybe if you're at that step, the last step is just kind of acknowledging how it served you, even if it was unhelpful or painful, and allowing yourself to just let that flow through you, right? And to release it instead of carrying it with you. Because this is exactly the type of energy that will have you feeling as though you don't deserve to daydream. You don't deserve the happily ever after. You don't deserve to step out on a new path that feels better. Or perhaps even if you feel you deserve it, you're not going to be able to get there, right? So this can also breed a lot of fear and doubt and anxiety, and just kind of that like low vibrational energy that makes us feel as though where we're at is going to be forever, right? We're going to be stuck in this energy forever, and that, you know, history is destined to repeat itself, or we're not going to be able to break those cycles, and we're just kind of doomed, right? Like that is, it can be depression too. And so it's recognizing that there's probably going to be some triggers, whatever this is for you. It might be coming up for you a lot this month. It might be triggered a lot this month, or you might be acutely aware of how you're still carrying it and how it's still really like impacting you and weighing on you and your decisions. So yeah, that's the struggle. The struggle is going to be like acknowledging and working through and allowing yourself to just process and work on releasing, because it is a process. It's not necessarily going to happen all at once, right? But it's acknowledging that that's what's holding you back, and the more that you can kind of find a way to embrace it, find a way to work through it, find a way to release it, you're gonna open up your energy to start embracing something better, right? So it's like, think of this as like the tether to like a dark place, right? And by working through this stuff and releasing whatever it is that isn't serving you, and it's keeping you from kind of raising your vibration and getting to where you want to be, is like cutting that cord and letting yourself kind of flow upward toward the light. And the energy that you're recommended to kind of connect with in order to overcome this is to, take a good inventory of where your time and energy and attention is going. Because the 10 of Wands is like, it is a very tired, worn out, and overburdened energy. And it signifies that you've probably got too much on your plate. Either too much has been put on your plate, either you've accepted too much on your plate, perhaps what you were doing was manageable at one point in time, but your circumstances have changed. And so now you have less time or energy or resources, and the things that were once not a problem for you are now, overburdening you. So this is about taking a look at all of your responsibilities, everything that kind of weighs you down, everything that you've been carrying. It can be physical, tangible things. It can be emotional, mental, like any of that kind of stuff. But it's taking a look at like, what work and what responsibility do you have that is just weighing you down, that you don't need to be carrying, right? So it could be that maybe there needs to be a more fair division of labor amongst like you and your relationships or in the workplace. Perhaps there are tasks that you need to delegate to other people instead of taking everything on yourself. And then perhaps there are things altogether that you just need to drop and say like, this is something that I can't do any longer, or this is something that's not important to me. Or, if I have X amount of energy to get me through each day, I've got so many other priorities that this one just doesn't register anymore. And it's being able to acknowledge that like it's been a long, hard road to get here, and it might even be a struggle. But if you're feeling tired and low energy and overburdened, it's important for you to take that inventory of like, what do you have on your plate and how can you lighten your load? Because you're like at the end, you're at the end of the journey, right? You've had all of these experiences, you've learned enough that now you get to make the decision like, I don't want this anymore. I don't want to carry this weight. It's not serving me. Right? And when you acknowledge what you're not going to carry anymore, what's not serving you, what other people need to be responsible for, because this can be being responsible for other people's stuff as well, then it's like when you actively acknowledge it, then the more that it's in your awareness, the easier it is to kind of accept that like you can let it go. And when you let it go, then you allow yourself to kind of finish off that chapter. Say like, I learned my lessons. I'm a changed person. This is the perspective I have now. These are the things that are important to me now. This is what can't come with me, and this is what can. And then you're leaving your energy open to have new experiences, to learn new lessons, to have new skills, and to start kind of like start on a new path, start a new cycle. So this is coming to the ending. And with the Ace of Cups, this indicates that there's a new opportunity for love and connection and fulfillment. So it could be in romantic relationship, like it could be in relationship to other people. It could be in terms of self-love, your emotional connection, emotional awareness, your ability to express and to move through emotions, to connect more deeply with your intuition, and to be moved by self-love. But yeah, it's kind of like a renewal when it comes to love, however that makes sense to you in the ways that you're feeling overburdened. So it could be a new relationship opportunity. It could be a renewal within an existing relationship to kind of start again and start building something more lovingly aligned to where you are now and what you're working with. This could be like your connection to yourself, but it's really lovely because it's like this 10 is going hand in hand with this ace in this new beginning, and saying like, if you allow yourself the opportunity to take that inventory and decide what you're leaving behind, give yourself permission, that will go hand in hand with like a renewed sense of like emotional well-being, and start you on a path where there's more opportunity for love and joy and fulfillment, and for you to live like a more heart-centered and intuitive life, to kind of start working toward those dreams, right? Like that's what this is about. So I think that's really lovely. And the highest possible outcome for this month is really interesting because we've got the Devil here and the Six of Wands. And so the Devil is a very powerful card, right? So it's like, it's all about, we can have power over other people. We can have the power to like influence, and sometimes it can be control and manipulate other people, but it can also be about our ability to recognize our personal strength, recognize our personal power, and that we don't have to be a slave to the things that we find difficult. So this can be like addiction, it can be excess, it can be, whatever we feel bound to, right? The things in our lives that it's like, well, I acknowledge that maybe I don't like this. I don't like doing this. When I do this, it makes me feel crappy. Or like in the moment I enjoy it, and then when I'm finished, I feel shitty, right? And it's like one of those things, like maybe a bad habit, something that isn't good for you, but you can't seem to kind of like kick it, or you feel helpless to change it. And it's recognizing that like, you have the power to free yourself to kind of like cut those ties. So this goes hand in hand with unbound. So it's like whatever you feel bound to, it's an illusion, right? The Devil works upon illusion. He kind of convinces you that he has control, or that you're helpless, or that you're worthless, and you can't resist temptation. But it's only because you've been convinced to believe it that it's true, because ultimately you're the one who has your personal power, and you can choose to do something differently. So it's kind of like the ways that we can be tricked into giving up our power, or feeling as though we're helpless, and like the fact that we can take back that power by acknowledging that it's just an illusion, and that it's not possible for someone or something else to have power over us. The power is always ours. And this is also just a very practical, hardworking energy, right? So yeah, it's to be aware of any kind of like illusion. Anybody who tells you something about yourself that isn't true, anybody who's trying to take you in a certain direction, anything that you feel like you have no control over. So it's kind of like coming to a greater level of awareness and a greater level of empowerment in terms of recognizing what those things are, and recognizing that you have the power, because the Six of Wands is a card of victory, right? So it's like being victorious over whatever you consider to be your challenge, or your weakness, or the thing that you can't change, or the thing that is like outside of your control, right? Because yeah, the Six of Wands, it's a card of victory and celebration, right? Like claiming your success and celebrating your success, and not only celebrating it and recognizing it for yourself, but sometimes it's also being recognized by other people. And so I think it's really lovely. So it's kind of like, or you kind of are claiming your power back and claiming victory over this kind of energy. And this is also like Capricorn energy as well. And like in working hard and standing up for yourself and claiming your power and coming to that victory, it allows you to like shine, right? It's like, you know, you deserve to take up space just as much as anyone else. You deserve to feel good about yourself. You deserve to feel valued and honored. So if you're putting yourself on the back burner, or you're calming your needs and pretending that they don't exist, it's kind of like, you know, working through this stuff means that you get to own the fact that you're a valuable and important person. You deserve success. You deserve happiness. You deserve like a spot at the table, right? And it's not playing small anymore. And I also think it's interesting that this butterfly is you, right? Like being transformed through this process and receiving that attention. It's like a similar color to like what the devil is surrounded by. So it's almost like, yeah, I don't know. I just think that's really neat. But yeah, there's an opportunity for victory, right? And this means that it's like you can start kind of living life more on your own terms. You can free yourself from all of the stuff that was weighing you back and start moving in a direction that makes sense to you, right? Like your success, your victory, what does that look like, feel like to you? What does that mean to you? And how can you empower yourself to move toward that, right? So we'll get you a couple of affirmations, and then we'll finish off with, oh, that's perfect. Okay, you got bonus. You got 3. Okay, so your first, sleep is a spiritual practice, so make sure that you're getting rest. If you're suffering from insomnia, it might be beneficial to have some kind of like nighttime routine to help yourself unwind, maybe meditation and breath work. Make sure you're prioritizing sleep and rest and you're not burning the candle at both ends, because that is an important part of your spiritual growth and healing, particularly when you are working through heavy emotions and trying to release old patterns. You need your rest. It takes a lot out of you physically. The qualities I dislike in others are disowned parts of my shadow. So it's recognizing that the people that you are surrounded by that are triggering you, those behaviors, those are parts of yourself that you feel maybe like wounded by. They may be tied to past trauma. They're parts of yourself that you've disowned and that hasn't kind of like been brought to light. And so it's recognizing that those people and experiences are offering you an opportunity to take a closer look at yourself and figure out where you need to forgive yourself, what you need to release, and how you can kind of come into a more whole sense of self-love and acceptance. And then finally, peace is in my pulse. So especially because there are some challenging energies here, like this 8 of Cups, walking away from what used to be, you know, what used to do it for you, that can be a little bit tumultuous and challenging. The 3 of Swords, absolutely. This 10 of Wands, feeling overburdened, overworked. That can be pretty, yeah, they can be pretty challenging and tumultuous. And so I think it's important to just remember that, you know, you are peace and love. You have the ability to kind of ground yourself in your body, take some deep breaths, calm your nervous system down, and just realize that like that's within you. That's a well of love and peace that's within you, that you can just kind of disconnect from all of the craziness that's going on around you and come to a place of love and acceptance whenever you're feeling kind of like out of sorts or frazzled. And so we've got one final oracle card for you. You've got Message in a Bottle, which I don't think I've had this oracle card come up before. So I'm just going to read directly from the guidebook, and we'll see, maybe this might bring you more clarity. It might be a good way to tie things together. So the essential meanings are communication, a sign, a Cleedon, which is the ancient name for a spontaneous oracle delivered innocently by the speaker. So maybe somebody like saying something that like triggers some kind of realization in you. Pointing the way to your highest good. So yeah, like a moment of clarity. Somebody might say or do something that just clicks something within you, and it's like that thing that you haven't been able to fully grasp or integrate or let go of. It just sinks in. So be aware. So the oracle's message: Spirit sends you signs when you ask for them, when you believe you will receive them, and when you allow yourself to become fluent in the language of symbols, oracles, and omens. They may come to you as a bird flying by, a logo on a truck, and a song on the radio. Expect confirmation that you're pointed in the right direction. Keep your ears open, for someone might say just the right thing that will give you the answer to your query. Today, your message is this: Spirit hears you, and the reply is favorable. So especially whether you're someone or not who believes in signs and synchronicities or looks out for those types of things, seems like that might be a really huge way that you might receive guidance and clarity and support this month, especially if you're working through things and you're trying not to fall into doubt because of some kind of like pain that you're working through. So yeah, that could be it. However that makes sense to you as the month goes on. Relationship message. You can expect someone to favor you with positive news. This could be in the form of a letter, phone call, or email. You are the intended receiver of this message, so stay open to what you learn. Only good will come of it in the end. The signs are all there. There's a prosperity message. You are on target with your purpose and your passion. You are coming into alignment with your destiny, and Spirit wants you to know that you're on the right track. Expect a call, a new opportunity, or a message from an old friend or business contact that will lead you closer to your dreams and greatest desires. Spirit has been listening to you. And then the protection message says, are you refusing to acknowledge the signs because you want things as you want them? Red flags are not pretty decorations for you to admire. They are warnings. They are warning you for a reason. If something doesn't sit right with you, trouble could be hiding in the bushes. Don't ignore the signs. Spirit always has your best interests at heart and will draw your attention to what you are overlooking. So yeah, in terms of whatever it is that you're working through to release, there might be signs that you're getting that are kind of trying to help you acknowledge that, help bring that into your awareness, help kind of like intuitively hint and guide you in the right direction. But just because it's the right direction doesn't mean it's going to feel easy. And it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to align with what we want for ourselves or what we think is best. And so a lot of times we can stand in our own way thinking that things should be a certain way, and we kind of reject the direction we're being led in. So it's kind of like pay attention to those signs and synchronicities, your intuitive hits. And it's kind of like releasing control and just being open to what they're trying to tell you, even if it's not something that you necessarily like or feel comfortable with. It might just be that resistance is tied to some pain that you need to work through. So yeah, signs and synchronicities, pay attention to them and what they're telling you. And if you do have resistance to what that message might be, it might be worth delving into a little bit more deeply, because it could just be an old pattern that you're tied to that isn't serving you, or it could just be an expression of pain that you've experienced previously. So, well, Sagittarius, that is a lot, but it is a very, very promising kind of energy. It seems like there's the opportunity, if you've got a lot of heavy stuff going on, if you're feeling kind of heavy, or there's just kind of that stuff that's maybe been suppressed, this seems like it might be a really good month to just cut yourself a break, give yourself the opportunity to just let go of whatever's holding you down and walk into a new energy of curiosity and seeing what you might be able to connect with. You might be surprised when you drop that kind of heavy crap that you've been carrying around for too long. You might be surprised how quickly something way more beautiful comes in, and what kind of opportunities you might have. So super promising. I really love that for you guys. If you enjoyed this reading, the best way to support me is to like this video on YouTube, leave a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone that you think might be interested in my readings, you can share my videos with them. And be sure to check out my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot. Take a look at my other readings, and make sure you're subscribed to my channel, but also signed up for notifications so you can stay up to date on new videos as they're posted. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, Sagittarius. I hope this month is good to you. Just be gentle with yourselves as you work through this energy, and trust that it's all working out for you. Because like healing and release is never easy. Like, it's necessary, but it's not easy. So I am very much looking forward to reading for you again next month. Thank you so much for sharing this time and space with me here this month. And in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.